I'm Leslie Blood. I'm the Director for Graduate Community and Program Development. Kat, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then Elena.
Yeah, I am Kat Diebel-Wilson. I am a graduate student career advisor in the Office of Career Services.
And I'm Elena Nickerson. I run the grad student career advising program through Career Services.
Well, excellent, ladies. Let's get started. So I started harassing Kat about this topic because in seminar, a bunch of my students were asking me career questions that I couldn't answer. And so just to pull back and give everybody a little bit of background, one of the big concerns is, and especially now, but has been for some time, that there are fewer and fewer and fewer academic jobs available. So over the last 2 years, as students have noticed this happening, they're finding that they're needing to go to career services and figure out how to apply for industry jobs. But since many of them had not considered this option until pretty late in the game, there are a lot of questions that they have about how to catch up. What should they be looking for? What should they do? What are the timelines like? What's the real difference between a CV and a resume? All kinds of things. Oh, timelines. Kat, you and I have mentioned, and I think Elena, we talked about this too once, how long you wait to hear back from academic jobs versus how long you're waiting to hear back from industry jobs. So there's just a significant difference between the academic career market and what we're looking at in industry. So today we want to maybe be able to answer some of the questions that we've been getting surrounding the industry job search. Sound good to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Carrie, did you have anything that you wanted me to touch on before we start?
No, I think I'm okay right now. I'll just save my questions for the end because you're usually pretty good about answering the ones I have. So,
are you trying to say I'm just going to talk so much that it's going to all work out? Probably true.
It's me.
All right. Carrie knows me well. All right, well, let's go ahead and start with timeline. All right. So we know, well, for example, when I was on the academic job market, I started applying for jobs in November prior to graduating in May. And I started hearing back, I started getting interviews in February. And I secured a job in April. So that's a really long timeline. November for job application, April is when I finally accepted a position and signed a contract. So what is the real difference between what I'm seeing on the academic market and what you guys are seeing from the industry perspective?
That's a great question. So I'll take a little bit of this one, and Kat, fill in the blanks or fill in the spaces I missed. So the difference in timeline is that you have rolling applications in industry, in government, in anything outside of academia. There isn't a set hiring schedule, annual schedule. So typically, I mean, and I can't say that the hiring process goes faster everywhere else. Government can take longer than academia does. But for the most part, if you're applying for things that are not academic, then they have an immediate need. They're not planning a year in the future. So that's something that, I mean, we've heard of job searches that last all of 2 weeks. You're hired within 2 weeks of applying. Through, there could be a multitude of things that happen that delay the process, and it could take months. So there's a lot more. There's not a guaranteed slow timeline, and there's also not a guaranteed fast timeline. So there's just a lot more, there's a lot more variance in how fast the timeline goes. But you also don't apply at a certain time of year. One thing I would say to be working ahead on, though, is networking is a huge part of the job search, and that needs to start far before you're actually going on the market. You need to have a professional network built in terms of people who are working in the field you'd like to be in, even if it's something where it's not that you have to have worked with them before, but you need to have contact with people, and that could come as easily as doing some informational interviews with people. But that's something that, in order for it to be natural and for it to not be forced and to not have that desperation coming out in those conversations, you can't, best practice is that you start having those conversations and learning about the field, and connecting with people in the fields you want to potentially go into, before you're actually on the job market. If that's not the case, like if you're, and I guess my caveat to that is start anyway, even if that's not your scenario. Like if you are on the job market now and you realize you don't have much of a network, then it's still okay to reach out to people. It's just easier for you. It's less pressure for you if you're not currently on the market to start that.
Yeah. I think I would add that for the academic job search, like the academic job search and the academic like hiring timeline are two terms that are basically interchangeable because there is such a set hiring cycle. Outside of academia, your hiring timeline or your interview process timeline or whatever for any individual job is not the same thing as your job search timeline, because the job search timeline is like needing a job and starting to apply, and the end of it is you getting a job, like starting on that first day. And in between, there's going to be multiple interview processes. There's going to be multiple applications that you fill out, et cetera, et cetera. And so, like, while any single job might be, for the job you get, maybe it'll be you applied and your first day was 3 months later to the day, but your job search took 6 months, or your job search took 8 months, or like, some people I work with, I had someone who came to see me in July, was graduating in December and wanted to go into industry and said, when should I start applying? And I was like, yesterday, because you never know what's going to happen. So we got his materials in shape and he started applying for jobs, and he came back to see me in August. So keep in mind, it's been like a little less than a month since the first time I saw him. He comes back to see me in August, and I'm thinking it's like a check-in. He's going to tell me, oh, I've applied for 3 or 4 jobs. Oh, maybe I need to refine things. And he comes in and says, so I have these 3 offers. Which one should I take? Like, that happens. His job search took all of like 3 weeks. And then he had 3 companies just like, clutching desperately at him.
Right. So it can vary wildly, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back just to a minute ago when Elena brought up this networking piece. I think that talking a little bit about what the differences between networking for academic jobs, which, I feel like I did through conferences, but also my advisor. But honestly, mainly, I don't think I did like hardcore networking like a lot of the industry folks that I see doing. So do you guys have any advice on where students should be looking to network for industry jobs? Or any advice on how to network for industry jobs?
I can't read since I'm on my phone, I can't see what Kat's doing at the moment. So
oh, I was waiting to see if you wanted to take this first.
Oh, you want me to call on you? Got it. Elena, please share your thoughts with us.
Networking is something, okay, so where to start networking and tips for how to do that? Okay. I think there are layers of easier to harder contacts to make. The easiest ones are people who already know you and care about you. And that's not cheating. So that's something that I think people, I've seen it often with people, they don't want to ask questions or get connections through people they already know, especially if it's family or something like that. But that is a fine first step. And honestly, most jobs are not gotten through your very closest contacts. It's a layer or two out. But any place that people already care about you and your job search is going to be the place where you're going to get the most help and have the most investment. So I would say first take a look at your personal connections, friends and family. Is there anyone working in fields or that you know has a network in fields that you're interested in? And ask for them to make an introduction for you with someone they work with that may be in a position you'd be interested in. I think the very easiest, least pressure way or format to do this in is, as I mentioned, an informational interview. And really what that means is connecting with somebody who is in an industry or in a job that you find interesting, to ask a few curious questions about what their day-to-day looks like, about how they understand their industry, get their advice for you on, you know, if you're transitioning from academia, what are things that you need to kind of lead with in your applications to make sure that you get noticed. Like those are all those insider tips that are really easy to just kind of have. This is not it's not a job interview. It's a place where you can ask candid questions about what the field looks like. The key to any conversation like that is two things. Being curious, genuinely curious, not just going through the steps of it, but connecting with someone based on an interest in something they're doing and an interest in hearing maybe their own career process or their own, how they got into the field. The second thing I think is courtesy and respect, manners, you know, being thankful for the time and the advice they're giving you, which, you know, in my experience of my years working with grad students, that's never an issue. I know most people are really grateful for the help they get, but just be expressive of that and be thoughtful about making it as easy as possible for that person to connect with you. So you do the heavy lifting in terms of, you know, trying to schedule it and making sure it's in a format that's comfortable for them. So is it by phone? Is it over Zoom or something like that? And then not asking for a huge chunk of their time right off the bat. Just ask for 15, 20 minutes to, you know, ask a few questions of them. So easing into it and just having more of a casual conversation around their work, how they got into it, and what they would suggest for somebody looking in that arena. So that can be one of the easiest ways to do that. Having people who know and love you make those introductions is the easiest piece. If you don't know anybody in those fields, the next easiest layer to go to is your alumni networks from the universities you've attended. CU Boulder has a huge one. Where do you find people in those networks? Go on LinkedIn. Outside of academia, really the hub for networking for almost any other field is going to be LinkedIn. And there are alumni networks for every school. So you can search your school, you can look at the alumni, and you can filter by industry, by company, by regional area, even by the department you come from. So you can find alumni of your schools and figure out where they're working and figuring out if there's anybody who's an alum who's at a company you're wanting to get connected to, and reach out that way and do some initial, you know, you can send messages through LinkedIn, or you can, since you know their company and their name, you can also see if you can find an email to reach out to them. So those would be some good starting places and some best practices for how to do that. And I really think informational interviewing is the lowest pressure form of of networking, and you're not fighting crowds in the way that you would be for traditional networking events. So those are some of my initial thoughts. Kat, do you have anything to add to that?
I do, like, the current situation has, I think, made it a little bit easier to cold email or cold add people on LinkedIn, because a lot of people are very, very open right now to connecting with new people, because they are they're experiencing some cabin fever. And new people to talk to right now is a really good thing. I've been saying this to people since the very beginning of the current epidemic, and I'm starting to hear from other experts in the field, which makes me feel good about having been giving that advice for so long. But like right now, a lot of people are a little stir crazy, and they are absolutely willing to talk to a new person. And so, like, strike while the iron is hot. And the other thing is, a lot of people worry about maintaining those connections. They feel like it's going to be awkward, but you don't have to be sending them like a note to check up on, you know, them or their health or their dog like every other week. It's usually sufficient to just check back in every once in a while, in the same way that you would with old professors that you know, might still need a recommendation from someday. You know, you shoot them an email every once in a while and say, you know, hey, I'm the worst, sorry it's been so long, and then update them on what's happening and ask them what they're working on. You know, not dissimilar from how you would maintain a far-flung professional network.
Well, Kat, you just brought up like the pandemic, so I think we should go ahead and touch on that. I know a lot of my students right now are having trouble finding jobs because of the pandemic. And you and I had a chance to speak a few weeks ago about what to do if your job search is not going to plan. So I guess I would like us to maybe chat about that for some of the students that are having issues landing jobs during the pandemic.
Okay. I mean, the biggest thing is in your job search, in times when the job market is down like this, you have to put in the time. You have to be looking everywhere for all the job postings. You have to be tailoring your applications super carefully, because, and not just the tailoring piece, but also just the proofreading and the editing piece, because small typos that would have been completely overlooked in a job market that was like hard in the other direction, where there are few qualified candidates and a lot of employers looking to employ them, they're going to overlook that stuff. But right now, when a lot of people are, you know, graduating into a tough job market or trying to move out of a sector that's been impacted by COVID, you know, the people who are hiring, they're getting a lot of applications. And so a little thing that might not have made a difference a year and a half ago might be a reason for you to get binned today. So you want to make sure that you're having someone else look at your materials so that they can find those typos. You want to make sure that you are tailoring as well as possible so that every job application is the best you can possibly make it. Also, you know, there comes a point when, in a lot of people's job searches, I know that this has happened for me, and I bet it's happened for pretty much anybody who's been working for more than a couple of years. Like, there comes a time when you just have to keep the lights on, and maybe you have to take a job that isn't, you know, what you really, you know, want to do with your life forever, but will bring enough in that you can, you know, support yourself and continue that professional job search. And like, that happens to everybody. And it's kind of a bummer when it does. But, you know, the real benefit, you know, there's a, not to be all Pollyannish, but there's, you know, there's a benefit to that. And especially if you have moved to a new area, or this, you know, you've been doing research or other like highly academic jobs, and now you're looking to move into a new sector, that we call them Band-Aid jobs. That Band-Aid job is giving you a recent, you know, relevant in some way, local, hopefully, reference, so that you're not just relying on people who know your academic work and the quality of that work to try and talk about how you're suitable for something outside of academia. You also have a recent manager who's really pleased with your work, who can speak, you know, in glowing terms of what you bring to the table to the next job.
Elena, oh, go ahead.
I'd like to reassure you that the entire world is experiencing recession right now and experiencing this pandemic. So I think there's a lot of fear if you take something outside of what you ultimately want to be doing, that could set you on a different trajectory, or that it may be the kind of a mark against you or your marketability later on when you go for the thing you really want right now. And I'd like to call BS on that, I guess. Everyone recognizes the need to keep the lights on in times like this. And so I'd like to assure you that that's a very normal thing to have to do, and people will understand that. And they will, even if you come at it with the right attitude and you seek your next job, the job you want, with the right attitude, they'll see it as a benefit to them. I do think a huge part of periods of time like this, especially job searching in times like this, is really taking care of your attitude and checking yourself when you start to get bitter about the hand that you've been dealt, the timing of your job search, the you know, how tough the market is right now. That stuff comes out. And so I would encourage you to pause if you feel like you have a lot of negative emotions about this. It's okay to have those things, but compartmentalize them. Would also say it's important to try to cultivate a mindset of learning. If you are a grad student, we know you like learning. I think that's something that I can assume about most of this audience is that you know how to be in that learner position. And I would say if you are trying to make this difficult transition into a new field in the midst of a time like this, and you need to take something that isn't your ideal, it is still an opportunity to learn. It is still an opportunity to build resilience, to build tenacity, and you need to be able to show that to employers down the road in order for this to be there's absolutely a way for this time to be a positive for you, but it does take the personal choice to make it that, and to engage with this in a way that is curious and open to learning, that will ultimately serve you better. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yes. And I'd like to point out a few things. One of the things you mentioned about the mindset, one of the lessons we work on in seminar is something called learned optimism, where it's, And by the way, maybe I should start this so I don't sound super obnoxious by saying I have held a bunch of different jobs with a PhD. I have decorated cakes with a PhD. I have edited dissertations with a PhD. I've done food photography with a PhD. And I had to do all those things during rough times to make sure that my kids were taken care of. I know it sucks. So I'm not coming at this with some Pollyanna attitude about how difficult it is, because I know. But here's what I can tell you for sure. The learned optimism piece, I never gave up. I found a job. I did something. And I have so much respect for myself because I didn't just, give in and say, well, you know what? I'm going to wait a year and then try again. Like, I needed something now. I wanted to work, we, like you guys keep saying, like, keep the lights on. Like, you need to have something functional so that you can continue to live your life, unless you just want to borrow money from your parents. But I didn't want to do that. So I had to look at other things. And every day I would force myself at the end of the day to reflect on the work that I did and know that I came and I did my best and I showed up. Like, I just showed up every day, and eventually things did work out. But coming in with the attitude, which, is difficult to overcome, which is like, well, I deserve, I went through all these years of school. Now I deserve X, Y, or Z. Well, okay, in a perfect world, sure. But we know that we are not coming out of school into a perfect world right now. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So at this point, just continuing to work, I think, will help not only secure the self-respect you have for yourself, but also when future employers look at you and they see that you are grinding it out during a tough time, that's going to help them respect you as well. So that's my piece on that.
Can I add something else to that?
Of course.
Leslie? So I think there's an opportunity here that it's legitimately important in becoming a strong candidate. And that is when the academic job search is largely about your expertise and your disciplinary knowledge. When you switch to essentially, and I'll say, let me just, with the caveat that yes, what I'm going to say here is also important in academia, but it holds a different level of importance. The primary currency you can have with any employer outside of academia is skills. Skill sets that were built in academia or not in academia. But you can be very strategic, even if it's a Band-Aid job, something that you're taking now. You can be building yourself as a marketable candidate by choosing positions that will allow you to build new skills that are relevant for industry. Mm-hmm. In one way or another. That your skill sets are the thing that your applications are built off of. It is the thing that employers are primarily interested in, knowing that you can take something and you can run with it. You have solid skill sets in a variety of areas, especially in things, if you are looking at a particular industry, find out what software is most often used in that. Find out what communication skills or business processes those jobs are looking for. And if there's anything that you, in evaluating your current skill sets, you see a gap in there, then look for jobs that may not be in the arena that you were looking at before to use the skills you currently have. Look for something that will help you build new skills to add to that and to be a stronger candidate for those types of roles later. We all have skills gaps as we're looking for new positions. Usually you can't find something that perfectly fits your background. And so I think you can be very strategic, and you can absolutely be a much stronger candidate through taking some various, types of roles that will build those skills.
That's great advice.
To that, I'd also like to add, I was watching one of Farouk Day's vision chats a couple of months ago. And I don't remember who he was speaking with who said this, but it really struck me because she said when she left school, she wasn't sure where to go. And there were some, really established fields that people with her degree moved into. And she asked herself, where am I rare? Like, where can I go that is going to be able to use what I bring to the table, but probably won't have seen it before? Like, where can I go that me as a candidate, I as a candidate, whichever part of speech that is, where can I go that's going to be blown away by what I have to offer? And then she said that, when she changed her mindset from, well, here's what people with my degree usually do, but I'm not really interested in this stuff, to, where can I do the kind of work that I enjoy and am good at? And, my skills are going to be a revelation to the people around me. She said that it instantly changed her perspective on her job search, because instead of feeling, stampeded into something that she wasn't that interested in or felt like she wasn't that good at, she was thinking, really thinking about, like, what do I bring to the table? What do I enjoy doing? And where are those skills going to be both necessary and unusual?
That's great advice. Yeah, that's a really cool perspective. I've got pretty much one more big one for us, and then I'd love for Carrie to be able to ask any questions that she might have, just to get a student perspective here. But I have not seen a resume in, how old am I? Old, okay. I haven't seen a resume, I don't think, in close to 15 years. And so if someone told me that I'd need to put my CV in resume form, I would freak out. And I know that's something you guys are really great at, because I kick all my students over to you and you do a great job. So could we maybe touch on some of the big differences between the resume and the CV?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take this if you don't mind, Elena.
Sure.
So the biggest difference is the lens that you're taking. So the CV is intended to be a comprehensive look at you as a scholar and researcher through the academic triad, through the lens of the academic triad, so research, teaching, and service. The resume is a brief, relevant document that focuses on the next job, specifically on the job that you're applying for. And you want to focus, instead of on research, teaching, and service, you want to think about your information in a different context. That I call it the industry triad: education, skills, and experience. And so that's the first and most important switch, is just move from thinking about this document is me on the page to this document shows why I'm a great candidate for this job specifically. So that's the first big change. Then we're thinking about, how do you write about your experience? And how do you craft an excellent resume bullet that talks about your relevant accomplishments to the next job in the previous experiences that you choose to include? And so those resume bullets, you want them to start with a strong active verb. You want them to be accomplishment focused rather than task oriented. And you want to fold in information about the skills and competencies that you used to achieve that thing, so that this does two things. One, it shows the reader once it makes it to a human, and that's a whole other thing about the non-academic job search. Once it makes it to a human, those bullet points are showing that person, here's what I've successfully done in the past for other organizations that I could successfully do for you if only you gave me money. And the other thing that that does is by folding in that information about those skills and competencies, you are increasing your chance of making it through the applicant tracking system algorithm to a real person who can then make a decision to hire you.
Elena, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I would also add that there are a couple different sections that you should be considering on a resume. That may be getting into the nitty gritty a little bit more than this panel is concerned with, but know that we have guides, written guides, to help take you through the process of converting your CV or kind of thinking about this document. To be honest, it's not really converting. You have to write a new document for it. Mm-hmm. Kind of switching your thinking from an academic CV to an industry resume, and then running you through the different sections you might consider. The overall theory there is that you are matching yourself to the role you're applying to. You're not, like Kat mentioned, you're not offering a comprehensive view of all that you can do. It's matching what they need with what you can bring. And like I mentioned with it more in general with industry, it's focused on skills. It's focused on here's what I can here's what I can bring to you. So there's a lot of strategy to that. I think working through our CVs to resumes guide that you can access, you can get through Career Services. And we're also happy to share that. Leslie, you can put it out to the seminars if that's something that people would be interested in. But it's a good place to start. And then once you get into the nitty gritty of tailoring to specific positions, then you might want a conversation around that. The guide might be sufficient for you, but there are materials that can help you step you through the process.
Still about one page?
I would say no. When you have the level of experience that most graduate students have, I would say that a front and back, so a 2-page resume is good. You don't want to go onto a physical, kind of second page there. For the most part, there are a couple caveats to that. If you're looking at management consulting, they're very stickler. They want 1 page. They want to know that you can write succinctly and represent it quickly. So that's one, but for the most part, I think you can get away with 2.
Oh, and for government resumes, I would, like, a federal resume is its own beast, and I would always use the usajobs.gov resume builder, because if they don't like what they got, they should have they should have changed their resume builder. It's going to look really weird if you're writing a federal resume, because they want to know a lot of really granular detail about every experience, and those federal resumes tend to be more of a work history than a modern industry resume does. But yeah, and those federal resumes are usually going to be considerably longer than anything you would turn in for the private sector.
Well, so we have that to look forward to. Well, all right. Since we're approaching noon, I thought we'd see if Carrie had any questions for any of the panelists today.
So thanks, everyone. This is helpful. The one question I had particularly, and I think this is applicable to both industry and academia, is with all of these layoffs that are happening in both industry and academia, how do new graduates market ourselves when we are in competition with people who have had more experience? I'm thinking in particular of academia, you know, with these layoffs happening now, we're competing against folks who've taught for 3 or 4 years, which, you know, may or may not, but I think that also is true in industry as well to a certain point. So I guess I just been curious about your thoughts there. So, yeah.
No, I think that's a good question. I don't know that there's any single answer to that. I think that you just represent yourself as best you can, you know, as the strong candidate for those jobs you're applying for that you are, and try and push out enough applications that you have a reasonable chance of success. Which is not a terribly satisfactory answer. Like there's, you certainly don't want to inflate your experience to, you know, so that it looks like you have something you don't. There are, you know, there are always things that you uniquely bring to the table. That's true of everyone. And if you look really closely at the job posting and decide on the angle that you're going to attack it from, like, you know, there's a lot of strategy that goes into this. And I think that really understanding what they're looking for and really understanding how you fit that and then being able to articulate that is, like, you know, like they say, simple, not easy, but that's always going to be the best approach, you know, pandemic or no. It's just that right now, attention to detail is your friend.
I would piggyback on that.
Go ahead, Elena.
Yeah, I'd piggyback on that just to say that those are, like, people with more experience doing something that you're going after. Oftentimes you can write a crappy job application and your experience doesn't shine. So the part that's controllable by you is how quality your application is, how tailored it is, and how clear it is that you bring what they're asking for. If someone has more experience but doesn't do those things, then that can fall to the wayside because they're not highlighting their best selling points to the employer. So I think that's the thing you can control in this. We can't control the pool that you're up against. You know, like, unfortunately, if you have all exactly the same skill sets, and exactly the same background, which is pretty rare that you would have all of that exactly the same. But, you know, the example is all they have is just more experience than me. That's hard to compete with. Like, but what you can do is ensure that you are speaking to what's important to the employer. And that's the advantage you can have in applying in a pool that theoretically offers all that you do, just more experience.
Yeah, and Carrie, just, you know, something to consider, not that things are exactly the same now, but when I went on the academic job market, we were in a recession, and it was really hard to find jobs to apply to. So one of the things that I did, and I'm sure, by the way, it's why I had the offers that I had, is I researched the crap out of the institutions. I knew everything, and I could apply myself like, I put myself in their department, told them what I could teach, what I could do, what I could contribute. I was ABD when I was applying for these jobs. I hadn't even defended yet, and I was still getting interviews, and I ended up with 3 offers, not because I was the person with the most experience, I'm sure, but I was definitely the hungriest, and I was willing to do the legwork.
I think the other thing that's a unique component of those who are new to the field versus those who have a few years under their belt is that you start to get pickier, right? Like, you start to have this, well, I've put my time in, now I should be able to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's one thing that those who are new to the field can bring that's unique and maybe more appealing to an employer is that hunger, that openness to take the class that nobody wants to take, that open, like that willingness to do whatever it is that needs to be done, and not having much of an ego around that, just saying, I'm here to help. I'm here. I'm passionate about this field. I want this. What you need, I'm happy to provide. That kind of attitude, instead of the picking and choosing that happens as you move through your career, which is a great thing. And it's something that it's awesome to be able to get to, but in a recession and as you start out in fields, that's not the attitude to have. It's the, give me what you got. I'll take it and I'll be happy about it and I'll learn from it and I'll kick ass at it. That's the attitude that employers want to see right now.
I agree, totally.
That's helpful, thank you.
Did you have anything else for them, Carrie?
I think, obviously the biggest thing that I'm going to be running up against, and I think other students are as well, but I know that a lot of professional organizations are working towards this, is just how to learn the vocabulary in translating skills to industry as well from academia. But at the same point, that also in many ways I think speaks to do the legwork.
Yeah.
But I think maybe if just really quickly speak on that, and then I'm out of questions.
So the best way to figure out what the lingo is in the field you're wanting to enter is, especially the buzzwords, try to stay away from too much. Nobody ever rejected an application for having too few buzzwords. You don't want to get to the point where you're obfuscating your meaning. But the best way to figure out the actual sort of language of the field you're entering is just to read a ton of job postings and to look at company websites, look at what they're saying about themselves, and look at the vocabulary that they're using. The verbiage that's in the job posting is by and large the stuff that you want to be using in your cover letter, and those are the terms that you want to be using in your resume. If they, if a specific company that you're super interested in calls some kind of process that's super common in your field by one name, by something else, when you're applying to that company, even if you hate the term they use, you use their term, because that shows that you've done your homework and you understand what they're looking for, and you understand how to express that you have that in the language that they're using. So just getting out there and doing that background reading is really the best. It's always the best way to do that.
I would also add another place to do some reading is professional associations. So like academic associations, but more more focused on the application maybe of the field. A quick Google search will uncover what the national associations are that are related to that type of work. And oftentimes there can be overviews of that industry or of that field that can help orient you to how it works. So those associations, as well as the library, the CU library system has a tool called IBIS World, IBIS World. And that's an industry research tool that I think could give you, again, sort of that overall understanding of the interplay of different parts of an industry. So if you're a big picture thinker who needs to kind of plug details into a bigger context, those are two things that could be helpful for you to get familiar with and to do some research within. The other thing is, when it comes to lingo, it's another topic that would be great for an informational interview. Somebody who's working in the field, and that's not a stupid question. all of those things are things that people are happy to explain to somebody who's curious about the field. So if there's something you keep running across in your initial research, and you need more context for that, or you need to see how it works out in practice, then those conversations, again, it's doing two things at once. You're learning from those conversations, but it's also building your network in an easy way along the way. So it's one of those multiple purpose conversations that are happening, but it's probably the best place to start to get oriented to all of that as well.
Those are really great suggestions. Is that helpful, Carrie?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think this is really helpful. The only other, sorry, it came up in my brain again. The only other question that I have that was sparked by your answer was, how does one sort of like tell employers or potential employers that you are testing the waters in both industry and academia because the job market is what the job market is, without trying to seem desperate? If I'm making sense with that question, because I have heard some conventional accepted quote unquote wisdom that for academics, you don't apply if you want to go into academia, you don't apply to industry because it will hurt your academics, and vice versa for industry. I don't know if that advice is valid or if it holds true, but I think at the root of it, it really is trying to not signal desperation. And so I'd welcome your thoughts on that.
I think even deeper than this idea of desperation is the core belief an employer needs to have about you as an applicant, that you're going to be dedicated to your job and happy being there, and that it's doing something that you want to be doing. So your understanding as an individual and as the person making the choice to pursue different types of work because your plan A is a really hard landscape right now, that can be something that you hold internally, and that maybe you'll go on the academic market next year, or that you have a timeline that you're going to keep pursuing that for a set amount of time until you totally refocus. That's something you can know for yourself, but honestly, as you apply for positions, it's not something to be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If you're applying to something that you truly see as temporary, you're not going to get a job with somebody, unless it's probably somebody that knows you already and only has a temporary need. Or if you're applying, and maybe that's a strategy to go, is apply for kind of set contract things, and then you have that natural end that might be helpful to you. But what I would say is most important there is in your communication with a potential employer, you have to find the parts of that role that you could dedicate your time and attention and excitement to. They want to see that you can dig in and genuinely, I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but engage with the position, and that you see value in you having that position, and that you can. That's ultimately what needs to happen there. So it's less about desperation there, and I don't think you need to. You don't need to show all your cards to a potential employer. But what you do need to do is tap into that excitement about whatever that role is and what it could potentially provide for you in your life, and beyond the paycheck of it. But the additional experience, the new skill sets, the honing of current skill sets, those are the things that you need to tap into as you are having those conversations.
How does that sound, Carrie?
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful.
Wonderful. Well, if Carrie does not have any more questions for our panelists, I'd like to say a very sincere thank you to both Kat and Elena for being here today and discussing the industry versus academic job search. I know I've learned a lot today as someone who has not looked for an industry job. So thank you very much for your time and your thoughtfulness. I'm very grateful, and I hope that we can do this again sometime soon.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Alrighty. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.